Welcome to another triathlon podcast, the podcast that brings the electrifying world of triathlons right into your headphones. Journey into captivating conversations, share the excitement of race recaps, enjoy the humor only a triathlete would understand, and join us as we debunk myths and bring you the bare, thrilling truths of the triathlon world. So feel your heart pound, breathe in anticipation, and get ready to dive into the world of triathlon. This is another triathlon podcast. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome back to another triathlon podcast brought to you by Mana Apparel. Now, I mentioned it last week, but this is the last week to put in your application for the team and also be entered to win the ultimate triathlon bundle worth over $4,000. So if you're doing your first triathlon, if you're racing for podiums and world championships, they accept members of all ability levels, and you'll find someone there who's probably at the same point that you are. So it's just a super supportive community with some awesome sponsors, and they're going to be giving away one heck of a package out there. So definitely go check out Mana Apparel on social media or manaapparel.com and jump in the team. Come join us on the team and get some of the perks there. But we are going to jump into what's going on with our own training and racing. Let's start off. We don't have Fede here today, unfortunately. He's traveling back from his race this weekend, but we've got Josh here. How's training life on these days?
It was a very good week, and I felt I feel like the closer we get to Chicago, I want it to be here now because the long runs are now long enough that all right, I'm good. So we were thinking of getting yesterday's run to 20, similar format as last week, like 5x15 race pace efforts. And then I woke up yesterday morning, looked at my training peaks, and she had changed the run. And it was 2 hours straight at just above race pace with the last half hour below goal pace. And so legs tired. And the weather was perfect yesterday, like no humidity, and all that summer training just kind of paid off. And it was like the heart rate stayed steady the whole 2 hours and knocked off 14 miles in under 2 hours. And then I was like, all right, well, I got 4 miles back. So I'm going to knock off the half hour there, and held like 7:15 pace for a half hour, which my goal pace is 7:26, and then anything below that's butter and gravy, and hopefully it'll be a BQ. So it was just a really good run. Heart rate never really drifted and just kind of stayed there. So it was a big confidence booster. Felt really good today coming off of it. Last week I used more of like my tempo shoes, and this week I used my new On Cloud Eclipse, and it was like night and day with the recovery and feel, and just everything about it was awesome. And all of the speed work we've been doing at the track's paying off. The over under, it's just all really coming together. Had a little scare last week that I might have mentioned with the quad, but that healed up and kind of took a couple days easy. But the swimming and the biking, just throwing those in a little bit to keep the triathlon world going, and it's really helped. And I'm excited for Chicago. I know I've gotten a lot more training done than you have, but it's I'm excited to be on the same course with you. And there's a lot of people I know that are going to be there. And my first major marathon, my third marathon, and my wife's her first marathon. So it'll be nice. And actually went and was a Sherpa at a triathlon for her this weekend. She jumped in as the runner for a local half iron relay. And they needed a runner last minute. So she jumped in and did the 13 miles of her 20-mile long run that day. So it was really cool to see that and see some of the really talented local people. A couple of them I recruited to apply to Mana. So, including the kid who won the race, was also an Athletic Brewing ambassador with me. So it was a really neat event, but I actually got there early enough to drop her off that I got out on the course and rode an hour and a half on the course, closed roads in a national park area. So it was like perfect, pristine riding that I don't get often around here. So really fun morning, even though I had like 3 hours of sleep. It was the best 90-minute ride I've had in a long time.
That's wicked. That sounds like a blast, and nothing like that race atmosphere to kind of get you fired up and feeling good too.
Yeah, exactly. Except I didn't plan the rest of the day and my food and everything else I was going to need for the next 6 hours that we were there. But yeah, other than that, everything was perfect. It was a good week and feeling good today. Just did a 2,600 yard swim and have a little 6-mile run to do after this.
Awesome. Getting it done and putting in the work for sure.
Yeah. I just figure stay consistent and show up healthy, and that's what's happening right now. And what happens on race day happens on race day. I did the work.
That is 90% of endurance training. Just consistency week over week. And you've been seeing those improvements year over year too, between last year and this year. It's exciting to see you go into this marathon and see what you can do there. It sounds like you're trending in the right direction and getting it done. So it'd be a good day.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of scary looking at what my easy recovery paces are now. Oh. Like, wait, what? Do you need to change the title of that workout?
Oh, how times have changed.
Yeah, right. Just even in the last 6 months. But yeah. So how was your first Chicago week?
Yeah, so I guess I haven't said it on the podcast yet because I signed up on Thursday last week, but I'm running the Chicago Marathon. Surprise. So my build is a little bit different than yours, for sure. Yeah, it was hanging out with some of the Phoenix crew and stuff, and they had an extra spot for the Chicago Marathon and asked if I wanted to run it. Yeah, sure, why not? Let's go do it. Let's go run a marathon. This is another segment of do as I say, not as I do. Full stop. In the last 6 weeks before I signed up, I only ran like 2 of them because I did that one race, got injured during it, had to take 2 weeks off, ran for 2 weeks, did the 2 world championship races back to back, and that pissed off the injury again. So took 2 weeks off completely of any training whatsoever, did not swim, bike, run at all. And then, yeah, this popped up. So I've slightly increased my run volume. Slightly. Last week the week before last week, I ran 6 miles total for a first run back. And after taking 2 weeks completely off, it felt like I'd never run before in my life. And then last week bumped up the volume a bit and ran 40 miles.
Oh my God. You know that thing called percentage upticks per week?
That 10% rule is generally a good thing to follow. That didn't quite happen. Yeah, no, and ended up doing an 18-mile long run this weekend, and it went fine. It's definitely a shift in perspective. So I know after all the years of training and stuff, zone 2 is my happy place. My body adapts well to it. Where I tend to have issues and get injured is when I do intensity, which, yeah, seems to come up. But I'm definitely a diesel. Most of my training kind of going in and getting started in endurance sports was a lot of volume at zone 2. So my body handles that pretty well. The whole week I connect with my coach again. It was like, hey, I have this crazy idea. And he's like, okay, cool. Do what feels good this week. Don't push it. But on Saturday, do a long bike ride. And on Sunday, run 16 to 18 miles and see how it feels. And I'm like, okay, cool. And the approach that we're going with is because of kind of my background. I know zone 2 I can generally recover pretty well from. It's going to be a lot of volume in zone 2. There's going to be 0 intensity. I've been training for short course all year. So like my long runs were 10 miles.
Yeah.
Marathon is a little longer.
Your goals are going to be a little different than they might be if you had a normal build for this race. And you're doing it for a great cause, first off, and a cause that gives back to a lot of kids, which is awesome. So kudos to you for jumping in to help them out. And I think it'll be a great race for you to get back into more of the long course type stuff, and you'll get the run through style again.
Yeah, and we'll get to meet for the first time, so that'll be exciting too. We've never actually met in person, so we'll have a little ATP meetup there, and just have some fun with it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend. That's like the spot that I'm in too now is like if it doesn't happen on race day, it doesn't happen, but this weekend was that weekend that I was like, all right. I literally texted my coach and was like, can Chicago be next week? Or maybe we can have a taper week. And then but it was good.
It's so exciting to be in that space where you just feel good and everything's clicking and moving right and just all the good feelings going in.
So we decided, so I'm doing another build week And we were thinking about having this be a down week and then go a little bit going into it. But this is going to be another build week and then a down week next week before my long. I'm actually going to Chicago in 2 weekends, and they're doing an assisted long run. So
Nice.
on the course with aid stations and volunteers and all that. So it'll be really neat. That's the other thing. I've been carrying all of this nutrition on my back. And it's like, on race day, I'm going to have nothing. It's going to be,
He's flying.
holy cow, a couple pounds less.
Absolutely. That's the best. That's one thing I hate about the long training run. I hate carrying anything. I hate having anything on me, a backpack or hydration pack and stuff. So race day definitely feels a lot easier when you have all of that supported for you. So supported training weekend will be a blast.
Yeah, it'll be fun to get out there and do that, see some people from our foundation that we're raising money for. So yeah, excited for it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So for you, you're going for a PR in Chicago. For me, I just want to cover the distance and run with the group that I'm going with and just have some fun with it. So that's literally my only training goal, is to not get dropped in there. So it should be fairly decent. And because I'm going so last minute trying to build up the volume, it's all, like I said, zone 2, to the point where I have turned off all of the pace fields on my watch. Don't need to see it. Doesn't matter. Just going to do what kind of keeps me in zone 2. And you're talking about that cardiac drift on your runs, how that's staying pretty steady. I had exactly the opposite because I have not been running long. That cardiac drift was a beast. And that's something that I have not seen for a long time, because I'm usually training for Ironman, so I'm usually pretty solid there. But it definitely goes to show how much that aerobic foundation makes a difference, especially when you're talking carb utilization, your heart rate, and just you can see the body breaking down when you haven't put in those miles. So it's going to be a fun adventure to train for 5 weeks for a marathon major. I've only actually done one standalone marathon.
Which, yeah, that's crazy. I think you mentioned that once before. Yeah, that's nuts. It'll be interesting to see. We're going to find out how slow Jenna's zone 2 actually is, or if it's my race pace.
It'll be a little slower there. Yeah. No, race day, it'll probably be, well, depending how fit I can get, at zone 1, zone 2, just cruise and enjoy, take pictures and chat and hang out with the group and stuff, which will be a very different experience, but one that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's fun to do. I've done that second marathon I did last year. I did more of that race pace in it, or that zone 2 pace, and it was really nice. And then push it at the end, but it was really cool to take in the whole sights and scenes of the marathon itself. To enjoy it.
Yeah, no, both of us will be doing our first marathon major, so it'll be interesting to see what that experience is like in comparison to more local marathons that are a little bit more chill. No, it is going to be an absolute blast. And, at this point, I've been working with my coach for 11 years since my first triathlon. So at this point, he's like, yeah, it's only crazy if you get hurt. So go for it. We'll make it work. Okay, cool.
Wear those cushy super shoes.
Oh, yes. I will be wearing my ons. The Cloud Boom Echo will be good. They definitely help a lot.
I've got the strikes coming this week to break them in once before the race, and that's it.
Ooh, I have a pair of those. I've only done one run in them. I decided to go with the Echo for the World Champs in there. Yeah. Definitely need to test them out. Again, they feel different. So I'm going to have to do another run in those to see if I like those or the Echo.
Yeah, and I did the last marathon in the Echo Boom 3s, and then I've been using them a lot for speed track workouts, and they definitely are great, like 10K and under, but I definitely could feel the effort a few days after doing a marathon in them for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will definitely give you guys the rundown as we go into marathon last push build from different perspectives, but it's going to be fun to be out there race day and connect and just, see what it's like to run a major marathon.
We had a little bit more major events taking place in the triathlon world than we thought this weekend too. Some invite onlys and all that type of stuff snuck up on us.
It really did. And mostly we've been keeping this to kind of the T100, the SuperTri series, the Ironman Pro series, because there are so many races going on right now. But we had a couple of events this weekend where the names were big enough and the interest was there. So we're going to chat about some of these other races we wouldn't typically talk about. But let's jump into the first one, actually, where you said right before this, the Norwegian method. It's not dead, is it?
No, the Norwegian method is not dead. We said that, chatted about that before we jumped on to record tonight, and it's the Norwegian method might be done in the short course, Olympic world, but it is certainly not done with the way they're approaching long course in 70.3. So they Christian and Gustav are officially back together, with Christian taking another win at Challenge Samarkand, and Gustav with second place, and then Rico Bogan in third. So some really big names up top. And on top of that, Christian and Gustav were in the front pack of the swim too. So they were right in it. Rico took over on the bike, and then they passed him on the run, but they're now swimming. And that was always something that, okay, how well can they bike and run to catch everybody in the swim? But now they're kind of in that front pack, and maybe not with the leaders, but they're right up front with the guys they need to be with.
Yeah, that's definitely. Scary. You got to think that Olympic build really helped with that too, just kind of having to be aggressive and spend a lot more time on that swim, just because, the Olympics, if you're not near that front pack, you're completely out with the draft legal. And he held up pretty well at the Olympics, so it's good to see that that's transitioning to long course, say 75 breeze.
Yeah, I think Gustav had the third fastest swim and Christian the fifth, and Rico was first, and there was only like 6, 7, 8 seconds between them.
That's great to see.
Yeah.
I saw this one meme of Gustav and Christian on the podium there, and all of the other long distance triathletes just looking around like, okay, Kona's gonna be a thing. They're gonna show up and challenge for it, which is really good to see.
It's gonna be, and now I think everyone's moved Christian over to the favorites list. I don't know if everyone's moved Gustav over there yet.
I don't think he's quite made that leap yet, but there's potential.
Not yet, but at the same time, he's had some good progress in the last couple of races that he's done. So you can never rule out the defending, or one of the defending champs.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if they work together and kind of, they're so evenly matched in a lot of ways, especially on the swim and the bike. They'll be together all day, probably chasing down a Sam Laidlow as they go throughout the course, and we'll see if they can run him down again in the end. But it definitely makes it more interesting going into Kona.
Well, speaking of working together on the bike, how's this for you? Gustav 151.49, Christian 151.50.
There we go.
They came in at T2 1 second apart.
Yeah, right on each other. And you know what? Gustav was only like 3 minutes down or something. Well, that's not 2.5 minutes down. So, I mean, Christian wasn't pushed in that race. But it's good to see that he's pretty close. You never know. Gustav, when he is on, is so incredibly good, and it sounds like he's finally coming back from a very, very challenging time the last little while here. So
yeah, I mean, he ran a 1:16.36, and Christian ran a 1:13.52. So I mean, he wasn't that far off, and he still had one of the top runs, third fastest run of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas Christian was top.
Yeah, and then on the women's side, we had a complete domination, absolute domination by Laura Madsen. She would end up winning the race by over 9 minutes at the end of it. Absolutely crushed it out there. Followed by Marta Lagonik and Justine Guerard at France. It sounds like she just took off. She exited the water in first and never looked back from there.
Yeah, it was a small field too. It looks like there was only four pros that started. A fifth who didn't start too. So much smaller field than the men's side. But again, it's a training day for Laura Madsen, and right. She's getting into form.
Well, that's just it. Got to have those catered training days where you don't have to carry anything with you. It's a perfect race for that.
Exactly. They're doing the same thing we're doing. Just not paying for the entry fees.
I mean, yeah. Well, we had another little race here where, again, not super deep, but they had some big names at the top. And it sounds like it was an invitational race, which we don't see too often in the 70.3 and Ironman world, over at Challenge Beijing.
Yeah, so this was a race that had been around a long time, but then kind of fell off. And Challenge family bought it up and brought it back. And so this iconic race is now back, and a lot of people are excited to do it. So I think Challenge took that opportunity to bring some of these top name athletes back into it to really showcase it. And then obviously probably get back into the normal business going forward. But unfortunately it poured brain. For some athletes, it didn't matter. They like it, but it definitely made the bike course and the run course a little sloppy. But the names were there. Kyle Smith, Mark Dubrick, Henry Skuman, Fred Funk. I mean, there were some really big names in the men's side. And then on the women's side, Paula Finley, Lucy Byram, Julie Daron, who's going to keep showing up at these types of events. And Ellie Salthouse was there. I could probably run through a bunch of different names, but it was the names that we expected to be up top. Paula Finley showing up. She was using this as a race on her way to the another TT race. So she's doing another race for Canada over in Europe as well. So this was kind of on her way, she said. And so she took it down with the 22nd win over Lucy Byram. They were together kind of on the swim, and then Paula dropped her a little bit on the bike and really just held on. Julie Daron was coming, but she didn't have enough road to catch up. But she had one of the top runs for sure and was scooting. But Paula, Lucy, Julie 1, 2, 3 with Ellie Salthouse, I think 4th. And then on the men's side, Dubrick on a rental bike. His bike didn't show up. It kind of Jenna's used to it. His bike didn't show up until yesterday or today, whatever. I think like sometime today, sometime Monday after the race, it showed up. But so he was on a rental bike, an Argon rental bike, and was able to hold on enough that he was able to almost run down Kyle Smith, and he was coming for him and ended up losing by 8 seconds. But Kyle Smith yet again with another unbelievable performance, awesome bike, and just a crazy killer run. And then Henry Skuman and Fred Funk, who had an awesome bike, but he just kind of lost the lead on the run, and good friend of the pod as well. So good day for those guys, and it looked like a really neat course if the weather was better. But looks like they all had a blast being over there and doing a lot of different promotional stuff for the event.
Now, it sounds like that'd be one of those fun events just to kind of be a part of, because they're really trying to showcase the area, the event, and, you know, you get, again, another catered training day in there, and sounds like they definitely got the VIP experience going down to Beijing. So that always makes that kind of racing a lot easier when you have to travel so far to an event like that. So that's not an easy trip from Canada for her, so like Paula Finley or the U.S. athletes too.
Yeah, I think the business class flights and all of the other stuff could be like, all right, we'll go.
Yeah, helps a little bit. We'll say
it makes the rest of like the convincing yourself like, oh, it's on the way to Europe if I go that way.
I mean, sure, we'll go with that. Well, we had one race that was slightly more talked about, a little bit bigger this weekend as well, with SuperTri London. Now, SuperTri, previous Super League, has a lot of history with this race here in London, so it was great to see it come back to this location, and especially now that we have the newly formed Brownlee racing team and a number of British athletes all throughout SuperTri. You could definitely see that London came out and showed up for it with some crazy crowds, like 5-6 deep, all along. I thought it was good in Chicago, but this put it to shame. They were absolutely lining the streets, so it was a really fun event to watch. Josh, do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown of the women's race? You were able to watch that one?
Yeah, so the women's race. So I mean, and as Paula mentioned, you've got the Brownlee Racing. Johnny was there. It was his first time actually being at his team named event.
I'm surprised he wasn't the manager. If he wasn't actually,
he let Non take the reins still. But he was there, and he was really hyped about being around it, and like it was kind of one of those moments that he had where he said he saw his logo and his name on the kits, and it was just a really cool moment for him and his brother. But he was there. So the swim was as predicted, with Victoria Lopez winning the short shoot yet again. I think it's her third swim that she's been the first one out of the water in 3 races. So. And from there, it was Olivia Matthias just kind of taking over the bike. Pretty much every leg. She was out riding solo, and your big names of Georgia Taylor Brown and Cassandra Bogran were kind of dropped. They were 20 seconds plus back at one point in the first and second leg, and then going into the third, they kind of bridged that gap going into the swim and made up some room on that second run, and were able to pull back the Stars and Stripes and Olivia Matthias. And it was really 3, Emma Lombardi, Taylor Spivey, and Kirsten Casper having great great days.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning, good bikes and great runs to kind of get in front of Liv. And then they were all pretty much caught. The only problem was the Stars and Stripes did not have a short shoot, and not one of those three had a short shoot. Probably would have been a little bit of a help, but the people who ended up catching them all had short shoots except for Georgia Taylor Brown. But Cassandra Bogran, I mean, what an absolute crazy run that she had all three legs. She was down 20-something seconds going into that second run. And then by the third run, she was bridging the gap right up to Georgia Taylor Brown, who was going for her back-to-back win. And then Jeannie Lahair comes out of nowhere again, too. And it's like, oh, here we go. We got 1, 2, 3, just like we had in Chicago. And Cassandra got a lot closer this time. And it looked like she might actually catch Georgia Taylor Brown on the carpet. But 1, 2 for
Crown Racing.
For Crown Racing for Victorious again. And then Jeannie Lahair in third for Podium Racing. And then the Americans were 4, 5. And I think Kirsten ended up coming in 8th or 9th. So great debut for Emma Lombardi. So Brownlee Racing did not have a good day. Liv finished in 6th, I think. But the British racers for other teams had great days. with Georgia Taylor Brown and Emma Lombardi. So there was some good British racing, just not the Brits on the Brownlee.
Well, it sounds like there was a little bit of a mix-up in the start of the race there. There was a bit of a crash between Katie Zafiris and I'm blanking on.
Lahair.
Yeah, Jean Lahair there. Yeah. And so unfortunately it was bad enough that Katie had a mechanical and her race day ended after the start of the first bike ride, which is just a shame to see because she has definitely been coming back to form as she went through the races. But for Jean Lahair to have that go down and make her way back to third was absolutely incredible. It's just the mental grit to keep going and keep pushing that hard when you have something like that happen was seriously impressive to see.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy because I think what ended up helping the three that ended up on the podium was the fact that there was a few of them that had been dropped early on in the bike, and they were able to work together to build back up, starting with Georgia Taylor Brown getting herself back up. But they were all kind of working to bridge that gap, and that last swim really brought them all closer together. But yeah, Jean Lahair she kind of bumped into, she was still running with her bike out of T1 in the first leg and bumped into Katie Zafiris, who was already on her bike, and kind of knocked her into a barrier, knocked her derailleur into her spokes, and then she had some other issues. So she wasn't able to continue. Fanny was also knocked out with a flat on the cobblestone. So there were a few mechanical flat tires on like the cobblestone area. So another different factor in the London race for sure.
Yeah, and then we had Crown Racing was kind of racing themselves by the end. I was curious to see. So this week we had MG as race director instead of Macca. So he was making the calls. And, with MG, you're never quite sure what he's going to go for. In the past, it's bitten him where he's given the short shoot to the second or the person farther back in his team. But sometimes it works out for him as well. But this time he did decide to go with a front runner with Georgia Taylor Brown, give her that advantage so that she could go out there. But the shocking turnaround, like you said, Cassandra Bogrand, her run was absolutely insane to the point where she almost caught back on by the end. Like GTV had all this space, it looked like, and then all of a sudden Cassandra is right on her shoulder and they start sprinting.
Yeah. And I think it was really driven by just her trying to hold off Jeannie Lahair and finishing 1-2. Like I think I heard her say she wasn't really trying to catch Georgia Taylor Brown. She was just trying to get away from Jean.
Yeah. Oh man, and MG called it out in his interview saying that Crown would be 1-2, and he would have been bringing it up the rest of the night that he got that right.
It didn't look good for most of the race, that's for sure.
Man, no, they definitely played that well. And, it was really cool to see Stars and Stripes was actually in the mix for this race, which was a nice switch up because they've had a bit of a rough go here rolling in. But in both races, actually, they were seriously affecting the outcome of the race and making it challenging for the other team. So that was really great to see. And we'll definitely talk a little bit more about the team rankings. But that runs us into the men's race here. So in the men's race, it was a few surprises and one not so big surprise, but it started out with, again, the Stars and Stripes. They were making the first moves in here, coming out of the swim first with Chase McQueen and Seth Ryder. And they were just ahead of Miss Louis Max Stapley. But this time, McQueen wasn't elbowing it to make his way through the first transition. He got a clear run there. And they just took off on the bike. So Stars and Stripes ended up taking the first short shoot. And then they were still working together and leading off the bike. So they blocked any other team from getting the second short shoot.
I think that's the first time that's actually happened in this season, where there was not 3 teams getting the short shoot.
Getting in there. Yeah, they definitely, they played that very tactically well, because those short shoots, while it's only a couple seconds difference, it makes a massive difference when you're all tired and sprinting max effort at the end there. And where I think the race really turned around was, obviously, we've had this Alex E. Hayden Wild back and forth between the Olympics, SuperTri, and everything else. But it looked like Alex went off on that first run with the intention of getting that short shoot, getting that third one for Brownlee Racing. So he pushed to the front, and then Alex just stuck right to his heels. And then all of a sudden, Hayden put in a surge and got ahead of everyone. And Alex just didn't respond to it. So Hayden went off the front and he ended up securing that short shoot for Crown Racing, which ultimately would benefit him at the end of the day. But we saw throughout the race, there was a bit of team tactics and stuff. You saw Vince Louis wasn't pulling when Hayden was off the front. They're definitely making sure to make the most of their advantages. We saw, and throughout the race, we just saw Yi kind of going back farther and farther. It just seemed like he didn't really have the legs that day. And you got to think there's got to be some fatigued from all of the chaos of winning the Olympic gold medal. It sounded, they had to read him at the end of the race, and it just sounded like he was just tired at that point. But and that we had the group fairly stay together. And it came down to the run at the end of the day. And we saw, there was a comment with Hayden where he was a little tardy out of transition. This kid was so confident that he was going to outrun the rest of the guys in this group in SuperTri of all races. He took the time to put on his Red Bull hat and his sunglasses, come out of transition at the back of the pack, and just cruise through all of them. You never see that in SuperTri because this racing is so close, but he knew he had their number and got it done. So I'm sure sponsors would be happy to see that. And then we had Matty Hauser and Leo Bergère finish out the podium there too.
Yeah, and what a race for Matty Hauser, because he's kind of been impacting every race and been a part of every race, but he hasn't been able to work his way up and be an impact at the very end. And he certainly was this time, because he wasn't involved really. Like, he wasn't there. He wasn't out, he wasn't on the lead swim on the first leg where he's been most of the time too. So he worked hard to get his way back up and get involved and really help save the day for podium racing. So
yeah, that was one of the shocking points. He was like 17 or 18 seconds out of that first swim, which he's, like you said, usually dominating these swims. So that was surprising to see. And he used to, when it was SuperTri years ago, he was definitely kind of coming into that form where he was starting to be a big factor at the front of the race, but we haven't seen that for the last little while. But he's starting to figure it out again and starting to show that strength in the SuperTri series. So it's always fun to see that mix up, especially when you have athletes with such different strengths, like Matty Hauser with his swim, and then you got Hayden Wild and Alex E with these runs. So it definitely keeps it a lot more dynamic and breaks this up and changes the tactics of the race throughout it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really love the format, because I mean, there's a lot of debate about what's going on with the T100 and it being 100 kilometers and different races. And I know Jack had Sam Renouf on this week too, which is a really interesting interview. But I just love the fact of what SuperTri is doing and bringing people to these venues, bringing them to these age group races, and really kind of livening it up and making it a fan-friendly atmosphere. It's not hard to find swim, bike, run courses that are that tight. And you kind of go, whereas some of these longer races, it's not easy to find the right locations where you can host something that long.
And they're making it interesting, like especially in London with the cobblestones, the views, like they're doing it right there. Although I will say, I still miss the mix up in formats every time just to keep it interesting. I totally understand the reasoning, keeping it simple for viewers, but it's so fun when you keep everyone guessing and just kind of change up the different strengths. Like, it really makes difference. So we saw last week and this week we have returning champions both times in there. What I don't want to see is a run of them just dominating throughout the race. And I think changing up the format really mixed it up and made it a lot of fun to watch. But one thing I will say with the coverage, those drone shots were awesome. That was really fun to watch it flying over.
Yeah. No, their coverage is so good, and when they've got all of the vehicles and all of the drones and all of the different ways that they can do it, and yeah, the drone coverage, it looked a little spotty as they were coming into the finish shoot, and then they would switch cameras and stuff, but it was still you knew what was going on. It was just really cool.
And you can see the distances. You can see it's a lot easier to see how far people are because when you have the cameras on front, sometimes it shortens that distance. You can't really tell. And that above you was really cool. I liked that.
And that's the other thing. You're not really worried. You're not wondering like how many minutes back are people and what is the gap. And this is go. You know, if they're 90 seconds back, they're done. And
we'll get that flag.
And now we know if you're in 30 seconds, you got a chance.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So for the teams, we had a big shakeup in the team rankings. So that is definitely, these teams are really figuring out how to take advantage of the points because the point system did change a little bit from last year to put a little less emphasis on the fastest runs, bikes, and swims around the course. So now it's a little bit more balanced. But we had Crown Racing surge to the top of the rankings board, knocking down Podium Racing to second place. And really, the biggest turnaround was Stars and Stripes Racing. They were solidly in the bottom of the pack there, but they had their best ever result this weekend. They were, like I said, involved in the race from the front, from the start, and they moved up to third, while Brownlee Racing, ironically, on home soil, had their worst result yet, and that knocked them down to fourth place with only 45 points. So we saw a massive mix-up, and you got to think these tactics, they're really starting to figure out how to make the most of those points.
And back-to-back races for Brownlee, too. So they've got some things to figure out quick. I think even like Stars and Stripes had two mishaps and misfortunes too with Katie Severus. Who knows what kind of race she could have had. She was in play for the first time, and then Vasco had a mechanical too, so and still finished in the top 10. So where could he have gone with a clean day? So they've figured it out, and I think confidence levels are boosted.
Mm-hmm. And I think, with Brownlee Racing, they're obviously, at least in the men's race for sure, like banking on their top favorite Alex E being a guy who can win these races and gets points that way, but that's not happening now. What I was looking at, I was thinking the best way, like the ideal setup for these teams would be something like having two front runners that can battle it out. Something like Crown Racing has Cassandra, Georgia Taylor Brown. But then you also, if you had two specialists, like a super, super fast swimmer and a super fast biker, make sure you can get those short shoots. Their only job being get those short shoots and get those swim and bike fastest points, and then have the top ranked like one or two where they're going to have a solid day all around. You got to think that would be the way to go with these teams.
Yeah. You'll probably see a different tactics when they get to Toulouse, and we'll see. I think they're not done. They're not out of it. I think they're going to have another good race. I think Alex can win another race, but it's not looking good for the team status. I wish Stars and Stripes had figured it out a little earlier, because then we'd have three teams going after it. But right now it's a two-team race, and I think we all know that. But now all of a sudden, Stars and Stripes are actually getting, like with the wagering going on before the race, they're actually getting in play here.
They were 1 point below podium at this event. They had 1 point less than Podium Racing. So, like you said, if they had gotten it figured out earlier, they could be up there. But, all throughout kind of the talk was, hey, we just want to get ahead of Brownlee Racing and get there. If they keep putting points like this up, especially having a solid day in the final, like they could start to encroach on Podium Racing. It's still possible.
Yeah, that's true. And they're working together, which like you haven't. We saw some teams working together, but like this now in the third race, they were the only team with both sets working, guys and girls working together.
You absolutely saw it too. It was hard to miss them at the front because they were definitely working in a pack and getting it done. So exciting to see that turnaround and some mix up in the teams, so we don't just have one team dominating in there. We had a little, I was mentioning before, we had a little shade thrown out there. I love how the team managers are starting to get really competitive too. And that's the fun part about having ex-athletes being these team managers, is they've raced each other and they have their own histories and stuff, but they're all super competitive still. So they're putting it out there. We had a little shade thrown by Tim Don, kind of saying MG was doing much better as a team manager than Mecca the week before, after they had a little disagreement on adjusting shoes and stuff. So it's just fun to see that these team managers, they're not just figureheads. They are all in, want to win, competitive, and going to do whatever they can to make that happen.
And it's all in play. I mean, they're interviewed during the middle of these races with action going on, and maybe they're not right there in transition and around them with their athletes, but they're handling that really well. I'd say Parker's starting to come into his own as now Parker's a good athlete, but he's not a professional athlete like the rest of them were. But he's coming into his own and appreciate what he's putting his team into now. So yeah, he's just got to start throwing some more shade and get a little more confidence going in.
There we go. We'd love to see the drama. Well, let's move along then. As much fun. We've got a little bit of time before the next SuperTri race, but we'll definitely be looking forward to that. And then eventually the grand final here in Neom, which that's still such a bizarre location. We almost see how the Neom develops year over year from the SuperTri races. So I'm curious to see what more they've built this time.
It'll be interesting, and you wonder too, because one of the things I heard on the Sam Renouf interview was that the venue that they had hoped would be ready is not ready for the grand final. So was Neom that location for that bigger event? Maybe not so much ready. For SuperTri, they're ready. They can handle something that size. So maybe it was Neom. But wherever it is, we're supposed to find out before. So within the next week or two, we'll find out where the grand finale is.
Stealing my what the F of the week here. Yeah. That was it. We're coming up on this, the grand final. It's still some time, but that they haven't announced it yet is shocking.
Their athletes don't know yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it sounds like they're trying to make this epic, awesome location work, and it just didn't come together in time, so they kind of held off to the last minute. So now they're reverting back to their backup location, both of which we do not know what the actual or the backup is. I'm going to guess it's something like Miami, where they just pop back down there because it's easy and they know the setup and stuff, but be curious to see where they end up for that grand final. And really just curious to see Ibiza. I'm curious to see who's going to be on that race course, because it's definitely not
right after Nice.
The list they have, yeah.
Which is crazy because Nice is now coming up in less than
2 weeks?
Less than 2 weeks, yeah.
That is absolutely insane. Yeah, so hopefully we find out where that grand final is soon. Hopefully the athletes do, and 200 gives them some money for the last minute flight cost to get all that set up once they eventually find out where it is.
Yeah. Sorry to steal your WTF thunder there.
Oh, good. It's something, it's definitely coming up here, and that shows. I think it has a lot of people scratching their heads at the moment, not the least being the pro athletes who are actually going to have to race this event somewhere in the world on one hemisphere or another, and they don't know. So,
yeah.
Crazy.
Plan their training travels and all that stuff that they would do normally.
Yeah, definitely. And especially with T100, there are definitely in some locations where you need all the heat prep and training. So I guess they're having to kind of go into that, maybe assuming that it's going to be hot weather, just be prepared for that in case. They still have some time. They said they should be announcing by next week, hopefully. But it's still, that's got to be a bit disconcerting.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's roll into then the social media posts of the week. What's been going on in the social world?
Well, we have talked about it a few times. This will just kind of be a teaser, but Jonas Dikven did finish the 120 Ironmans in 120 days. So full distance on the Roth course. Congrats to him. Pretty epic. He looked great and finished every one of them. And I mean, pretty good form and just got back after it the next day. So kudos to Jonas, the new world record with 120 straight days of full distance. Speaking of world records, though, the social media post of the week, I don't know, this happened a while ago, but the documentary just dropped this week on YouTube for Ross Edgley, and it was his third attempt at going after the longest ever continuous swim. And he had failed in Loch Ness, he had failed in Italy, and this time he decided to go in Yukon in Canada and go on the Yukon River. And wearing his Dabao wetsuit, and I mean the whole team effort, and the fact that they found a river that, I mean, there were times where he had to move to avoid logs and and they had to have like bear lookouts, and the documentary is unbelievable. So look it up on YouTube. It's on the Dabao website. It's on Ross Edgley's Instagram as well. It's called World Record, 510 kilometers, 56 hours nonstop.
It just sounds miserable.
But on top of it, even through the night, though, because of the time of year it never got truly dark.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
But, I mean, it was dark. It got cold, and hypothermia is one of the biggest things that they have to watch out for in races like this or events like this, but because of it being the river too, it also helped him sit up, come out of swim, and still be moving continuously too. So they had some things that they had to navigate, some rougher waters and rapids and rivers crossing and having to pick where. So there was one part where he had to like swim like zone 4, zone 5 back across the river to get to the next side where he needed to be. So like going zone 1, zone 2, and he's like, nope, here's our 100-meter practice. And in the middle of the night, it was crazy. But awesome documentary, really cool. Kudos to Ross, because he's been after it, and the guy's a badass. And it was really neat to watch, and just to see all of the different aspects of what goes into it, and the feeding, and how he takes in all his carbs, and he came out of it, and the only real injury he had this time, and he's been hospitalized before after doing these attempts. This one was chafing behind the knee. Forgot to
lube it up there. That's juicy. Yeah, I didn't think about that daylight thing. I lived in northern Canada for a while, and it was so bizarre during the summers. Like, it was literally the sun would start to set around 1 a.m. It kind of touched down to the ground, and then it would come back up around 3. But it was never fully dark. It'd get to like twilight and then sunny. It was the most bizarre.
Especially if you had like a big moon that time of year too. So it's like
the winters were brutal because it was the opposite. So you got like 3 hours of the sun above the horizon and then back down again. So you're just like, there's never any sunlight ever. Crazy. Well, I'll definitely have to check that out. I can't say I've ever in my life wanted to swim for 56 hours, but kudos for getting that done. That is absolutely insane. But
not even downriver. No way.
No. I don't want to float for 56 hours for mine to navigate and do all that.
And then, so here's I don't want to ruin the whole thing, but we all know he finished. You can look it up. But it's he gets off and he has to get to shore. And like, it's not like 56 hours earlier they picked where he was going to finish.
Yeah.
He's just like, all right, we know we've gotten far enough. I think he beat the record by 20 or 30K, something like that. This is 317 miles, I believe, that he did. But he gets off and there's like somewhat of a little bed area, like beach-ish area, but there's trees and all. And we all know after swimming 1.2 miles or 2.4 miles, you get the wiggle wobbles a little bit, especially. So he got up and they were all like concerned. You're like, you all right? He's like, you fell down. He's like, yeah, I just got the wobbles a little bit. I'm all right. I'm good. I've been swimming for 56 hours. My legs weren't there.
I was just able to stand up after that. It's just, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Crazy. Well, is there anything else going on in the world? Actually, one mention we have to say here, Primoz Roglic, he won La Vuelta this year, got it done. But it was definitely an interesting race with Ben O'Connor was in the red jersey for something like 13 days, mixing it up and keeping it interesting, and wasn't that far behind in some of those mountain stages like most people thought it would be. But it was great to see Primoz back at the top at the Vuelta. And just surprising to see how we haven't seen Visma Leasebike anywhere this year. And you know what? It was actually a really fun race to watch. So if you haven't watched some of the recaps and stuff, definitely jump on it, because when he's on, he's on.
Yeah, for sure. He definitely was in form and ready to go and take advantage of others' misfortunes and really put the hammer down. And it was cool to see, for sure.
Although I did miss the drama and intrigue of like the whole Seb Kuss as Melissa bike, kind of 3 liters going into it, and seeing him have such an incredible day. Of course, this year no one was going to let him go in a breakaway and get over 10 minutes in front of everyone else. But
no, they know who Seb is now.
Yeah, exactly. You can't hide and just run off in a breakaway. And then we also had a Canadian, Mike Woods, come and take a stage win here. So it was definitely a fun race to watch. If you're not into cycling in these Grand Tours, sometimes they take a little bit to get into while you figure out the tactics. But once you're in it, it's just crazy to see everything that goes on between the team tactics, between the GC leaders. And the commentators managed to keep it interesting for 21 days of like 5-6 hour days. So it is possible to make long distance triathlon interesting to watch. Just needs to be done in a different way.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I mean, I guess we started the episode with talking about Team Mana. We might as well end it because some of the current members of Team Mana had some pretty epic weekends in both Wisconsin and at Santa Cruz 70.3. So if you are thinking about applying, check out the Mana Apparel site, check out the stories on Instagram, and you'll see some really cool people do some really crazy things this weekend, and others who weren't even racing there supporting them and getting the video coverages, and coaches there and locals who are in that area showing up to help them out too. So that's what the whole team's about. And from the top of the overall list all the way to the 6-7 hour race, we had everyone there, but some really crazy sub-5 performances at both Wisconsin and Santa Cruz.
Yeah, and it's definitely a case of it's very inspiring to see the fast performances within the team. But even if you're doing your first triathlon, I'm coaching actually 2 athletes that next year are going to try their first triathlon and are joining the Mana team. So definitely come check it out. We welcome athletes of all ability levels in there. It's really just a fun, supportive group with some wicked sponsor discounts, which definitely helps because the sport is not the cheapest. So go to Mana Apparel and come join in the fun there. But other than that, Josh, anything else going on in the triathlon world that we have to chat about before we go?
I think we're a pretty quiet week this week, racing wise. No T100, no real big Ironman races. Everyone's kind of just getting ready for Nice.
That's exactly it. Yeah, next few up are Nice, the Ironman World Championships in Nice, T100 in Ibiza after that, and we're also going to have SuperTri Toulouse coming up. And I think that's about it before we get into Kona and 70.3 Worlds and Grand Finals all over the place, wherever in the world they may end up.
It feels like everyone and their brother showed up at Santa Cruz as their last big training ride for Kona, because those times were crazy.
Absolutely. Get it all dialed in and ready to go. Be awesome. Very cool. Well, we will be back next week to chat about what's going on in the triathlon world here. We'll come up with some fun stuff to talk about, even though there probably won't be any big races. But until then, we will see you next week. Have a great night, Josh.
Have a great night.